Okay, so I'm gonna start this project finally. This project has been one that I've had the things for the longest time and just haven't got around to doing it. I saw something like this on Grandin Road where they had these really cool arm or hand things coming out of these ornate looking backdrops. It looked very... I don't know, I want to say Alice in Wonderland for some reason, but I'm not sure that that's... I don't know why it reminds me of that, but it was just that really kind of whimsical but creepy vibe, and I really like the idea of that. So I wanted to buy them, but the delivery to Australia was crazy, and so I thought, well, maybe I could make something like that. In fact, actually, I think I'm going to put them around that way. And so I went searching for some things where, you know, that I could put together to actually create them. And I thought, what better than to use these jewellery holders, these little hand jewellery holders, as the hands. And I wanted two different ones. You could do the same, but I liked the thought of having them be different. And in fact, if I really like them, who knows, I might find another hand and another backdrop and add to my creepy hand collection. I'm sure my husband will love that. I want to put my own spin on it as well, but yeah, I found these backdrop things on eBay, and it was actually interesting. You could find all sorts of different little filigree wood bits, so if you wanted to get individual pieces and, you know, design something with all of the individual bits of filigree, you could totally do that. Or you could do like I did here and buy the single piece of them. And I did that just for cost's sake because it ended up being cheaper to get a solid piece. And I figure I can put my own touch on it in other ways. What I've noticed though is the wood is quite rough, and you know, look, they were cheap, so fair enough. It's got some dings, it's got a bit of a line going across there, it's quite rough and in need of some sanding. And so I was looking at maybe using the Dremel. I thought that might be easier to sand in some of these really detailed spots. I haven't tried this yet, so let's see how it goes. I'm not a huge Dremel aficionado. I've only done the one Faewood sign, which, you know, as the namesake for my channel, our house name is Faewood, so I created a Faewood sign with the Dremel. And, you know, it's I've heard a handy tool to have, and I haven't used it a lot, so I'm really keen to give this a try. Hopefully I don't make a big mess of these. I only have a small selection of accessories with mine. I know some of them come with additional accessories, so there's possibly better accessories available. I'm going to try a few different ones. I have this grinding one which I've used before that I'm going to start with, but I have to be really careful that I don't go too fast with this, because I think because I used this as well for the sign, I know that it can eat away a fair bit of wood, and I'm really just wanting to polish it. There are also like little sanding discs and things that they have in here, which are great for like flat bits, and possibly I'll use them for some of the bits that sort of stick out, or the flat bits and that sort of thing, but they're not going to be great for all of the roughness that's in the details here. So hopefully this will work. And then we're going to start piecing all of these bits together and add some flourishes, and anyway, we'll see what happens. So let's get started. Alrighty, so I've done a couple of coats of the black spray paint on these bits of wood, and now I need to fasten the hands onto there. So I'm going to do a little pilot hole first, just so I don't split the wood, hopefully, and drill some screws in. I'm going to have probably some other things that help it stick as well, but I always like to have something structural fastening something if I can, so I think it's a good idea to put the screws in just to be sure. Okay, well, I probably made that look as difficult as possible. Definitely recommend using some sort of clamp. I think my husband has some clamps and I could have used them. I'm being a little bit lazy and it worked out okay. I might tighten it up just with some hand, like the last little bits by hand with the screwdriver. I am now thinking I'm going to put some flourishes onto my little hands with this Apoxie Sculpt, or at least I'm going to attempt to. I am pretty new to this medium. I have used like the crystal clay with actual crystals and stuff, but I haven't done a lot of actual sculpting with it, and mostly because I really wasn't sure how. I found it really super sticky and tacky and found that a little bit difficult to work with. But I've been looking into techniques, and apparently using like a wet brush or wet tools and things is the key. So anyway, we'll give it a go because I would really like to use this type of sculpting medium because it is a really handy thing, especially when there's things that are just too awkward to bake or whatever. So what I'm hoping to do is create some sort of magical looking tendrils coming around the hands, just to incorporate them into the piece a bit more, because like currently, you know, they're just sitting there, and you know, once we're finished with all the sculpting and so forth, we will decorate them as well. And I haven't exactly decided how I want to do that. I feel like I would like it a little steampunk maybe, so that could be cool, but we'll see. I don't know. Let's just start with the sculpting stuff and see what happens. This is the Apoxie Sculpt. Now, it's a two-part system like any epoxy, so you do need to mix the two parts together quite equally so that it works the best. If you use too much of one or other, it just won't set properly. So this was a really good project for me to start playing with the Apoxie Sculpt properly. I've only touched on it a couple of times with things, mostly to add crystals and things like that. I used to use the crystal clay. I much prefer Apoxie Sculpt to the crystal clay. It lasts longer, it's easier to work with. It comes in bigger tubs. It's just a lot better. And I'm working with it with the water, and the water really does make a big difference as a way to lubricate your tools and allow you to sculpt things. And as you see, I'm just adding on little tendrils one at a time, and I'm just rolling out a piece of clay and rolling it to a point on one end and then attaching it and then sculpting that with mostly my ball end tools. And I'm adding these really cool like shapes that make it look like smoke, but a magical kind of smoke. Like it's a little bit unnatural looking, almost a little bit cartoony. There's just some interesting shapes and things happening to it. Now this of course isn't in the Grandin Road hands, but I thought it looked cool, and I also feel like it helps incorporate the hand into the piece. There's just a tiny bit of a gap where you attach the hand onto the plaque, so this really just makes the whole thing one piece. Now, I did need to spray paint this with a few coats. You want to be careful not to put too much on at once because you will start getting drips. I did get a couple of drips that I had to sand off and fix later. I didn't show that on here, but just come in gently with the spray. Don't come in too close, and come at it from different angles so that you get right in there. Now, if you guys have been watching me for a while, you know that I have a bunch of metallic paints that I got. They're Art Alchemy ones, and I absolutely love them. And I thought this kind of indigo metallic was perfect as the base colour. And then I'm using this Sparks paint, which was a new one for me. It's quite a sparkly, as the name suggests, Sparks. And so I'm using that as an accent colour, and I'm sort of focusing that on the ends and the edges of some of those tendrils. Putting a little bit on there, and then accenting that again further with a lighter colour, which I come in with in a moment. So this acrylic I'm using in the hollows of the shapes, and it just adds a bit of dimension to these wisps of magical smoke. And I really like that kind of pinky, hot pink colour because it adds a bit of a glow. You could use a different colour. I mean, you could totally paint this any way you like, really. Then for the very edges of things, I'm using this Opal Magic Violet Gold. It's almost a gold colour, but it does have a purple shift to it. So it really works well with this piece, and I'm just, as you see, using it on really accent piece on the very edges of the smoke and at some of the bits that stick out a bit further. Just thinking about where you might see some highlights. Now you guys know I love this rub and buff stuff, so I've got my bronze one that I'm starting with here and working that in. You could make this more bronzy than I have, and I sort of regret not doing that because I did feel like maybe a little bit of more of the bronze and gold would have worked well. So if I was doing it again, I probably would have gone a bit heavier with the bronze, but so same thing on the other hand. And then on the hand itself, I'm using this Opal Magic wax. I'm kind of new with this wax. I haven't used it a lot. And it's a very translucent one, but it has a shift to it that is a blue shift. And you can get different shifts to these waxes. But it adds that kind of incandescent glow, that magical glow to other parts of the piece. So I don't know, I think this is a really perfect kind of craft to do for Halloween, which is coming up. If you're wanting something spooky, and especially if you can't get your hands on those spooky hands, get your hands on the hands, then have a think about making one of these yourself. It's a good holder. You can put them up on the wall. I've just used screws to screw these straight into the wall, honestly, and I put a little like jewel, stick-on jewel. You can use them to hang jewellery on. You could just have them as decoration. Or you could use them to hold other things as well. Alright, I hope you liked it, guys. Subscribe if you want to see more of me, and I'll see the rest of you next time in Faewood. Bye, guys.